And good afternoon on this very pleasant first day of October. We can now formally say that the fall is upon us. Not that it's falling yet, but it's here. Hello, James. Nice to see you back from White Oak. And there's the other James from Crafton. We are full of Jameses today. Another one will come on, no doubt. Jamie Fitz will come on. But anyway, welcome back. Beautiful day here. And wherever you are in America or in the world, I hope it's a lovely day or a pleasant evening or the middle of the night with you. I have a few announcements, but we'll wait a minute or two before we do them. And then we'll have our little chat about comedy and errors, which I suppose should be the subtitle for this. Marlene, summer has indeed returned to Squirrel Hill in spite of the fact that it is fall. In fact, it's actually getting warmer out there than it's been last week. Hello there, Grace in Dublin. Lovely to see you. And Pat in Oakland. That's Oakland in Pittsburgh, not Oakland in California. I think. I hope. I'd hate to be wrong. Although, as I often tell you, everything I do tell you may be wrong. Anyway. We'll give it, as I say, a few more minutes for the late arrivers and those still parking their cars before we make a go of it. Just checking my notes. Yes, let's do our usual thank yous, particularly to the Allegheny Foundation for their very generous and gracious grant, which enables us to present these free of charge and at no cost, not only to you, but at no cost to the company as well. They gave us a grant for a year to cover the entire cost of this, and let us hope that they repeat it next year. But whether they do or not, we're going to do our best to bring you a webinar every single week. And I've even got the next 3 clearly lined up in my head. You can, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can get onto it anyway. But if you subscribe to it, it does help us, because the more numbers of subscribers on our YouTube channel, the better the benefits that we and you get from it. And of course, all the past webinars are there on the YouTube channel, and you can also get all our alerts and that kind of thing off that channel as well. Speaking of money, please consider sending in a donation. If you've sent a donation already, thank you from the bottom of my heart, indeed from our collective hearts here at PICT. You have no idea how important it is, no matter how much that donation is. Every single dollar does count. And as I always remind everyone, your donations are what help us to put the plays on the stage. We use your money for the mounting of the plays. You are a partner in that sense. You're all part of the family, but you're a real partner in the production of the shows because of the donations you send, and they do matter. So please consider, if you haven't donated already this season, or if you feel that there in your wallet or your pocketbook or somewhere you've got a few dollars you didn't think you had, please consider sending it, because every dollar counts. More on that later on. There's Dennis in Greensburg, another of the regulars tuning in. Welcome. And Greg, how are you? Subtitle of your autobiography. I think it's the appropriate title of an autobiography of anybody who ever works in theater. A comedy of errors. Couldn't get better. Hello from Judy and Al, also in Oakland. Welcome. And David, they're over there in Stratford-on-Avon, and Comedy of Errors played there during the summer. It's a wonderful summer play. It's a wonderful comedy. I'll talk about why in a moment. But it's a great joy. And welcome to you, our Shakespeare's Birthplace contingent member of our weekly gatherings. How are we doing? It's just gone 2. We'll give it another minute and I'll have a sip of my coffee. I am now formally admitting that I am addicted to coffee. And as you can see, I'm a bear without my coffee. Actually, I'm not. I'm a cuddly bear without my coffee, but I still have to have it. But I don't drink it after 4 o'clock in the evening anymore, because then I'd never sleep. And sleep, sleep, knits up the ravel sleeve of care, becomes more elusive the older you get. But in order for me to be human in the mornings, I do need it. I'm sure many of you are the same. So anyway, it now being past parking your car time, a few notices before we begin. Tonight, this evening at 7:30 on both Facebook and YouTube, our Facebook page and on YouTube, you can tune in live 7:30 tonight for the exclusive reveal of the announcement of the first of our new Expand the Canon series play readings. Sharon McCune, our wonderful associate producer who is in charge of all this, will be announcing what the first play will be, when it will be, and how you get to see it. And of course, the admission will be free. We will give priority seating to subscribers, but if you're not a subscriber yet, and you could be very quickly, you can still come along and see it, but you do have to pre-book because there will be limited seating. But it's free admission. We just want to know that you're coming. On that point, single tickets are now on sale. Subscriptions for the season have been on sale for the last month, but single tickets for As You Like It are now on sale, and you can buy your ticket on the website. You can book on the website, and the ticket prices, you'll be delighted to hear, have not gone up since last year. We are still holding the prices for single ticket sales. It's $48 and well worth it. I think that's all my announcements for today. Yeah, for the moment. So there's Linda. Good afternoon to you. So this week, I want to talk about, and it's a topic that we've talked about before, and I'll come back to it, but today's title is What a Farce This Is, and I'm centering it around the Comedy of Errors. Now, this is a kind of continuing series of observations on the nature of comedy, and so this week we're going to take a look at Shakespeare's very farcical play, A Comedy of Errors. Now, in previous webinars, I've discussed what farce is in terms of its the hierarchy of comedy, if you like. And farce is the most, I suppose, extreme form of comedy. And it traces back in its roots all the way to the Greeks and the Romans. As I say in this week's preamble, from Aristophanes to Plautus right up to the 19th century genius of George Feydeau and the classic French farce, farces have been a mainstay of theatrical presentation. Audiences enjoy watching the worst of all possible worlds happen to other people. And this is my point for today, which I'm going to be hammering home. And right in the middle of the period, as you not quite chronologically in the middle, but artistically in the middle between what the Greeks and the Romans did and what happened in the 19th century, 400 years ago, Shakespeare wrote the most wonderful, remarkable, absurd farce on the topic of mistaken identity. And there have been so many derivatives of that ever since that you have to look at Comedy of Errors as being an exemplar of what the nature and purpose of farce truly is. Okay, usual writer, everything I tell you may be wrong. This is entirely my view. And for those of you who are regular viewers, listeners, watchers, and YouTubers, I often say this because I want you to understand this is my perspective, just as an actor and a director of a few years' experience, as to what I believe this whole thing is about and why it matters. So, I do not propose to spend the rest of the next hour describing the plot of Shakespeare's play or the story, because what I always hope you do when I talk about a particular play is that you go away and read it yourselves, but that you'll read it. If you've read it before, you'll read it again with the perspectives that I might put forward. And if you've never read it, you can use this as a guideline, and you can then find reasons to disagree with me. What I do want to discuss is, if you like, the premise on which the play is composed, the structure of it, and how it makes for farce, for being farce. Now, as I mentioned, we did discuss at length in a previous webinar what the nature of farce is. So I want to do a quick refresher. And I remember beginning that one with the very simple phrase, "There's nothing funny about farce," which is a statement that definitely needs explanation. Now, back then I found a quote in the Divine Wikipedia, which I thought summed it up beautifully. In theatre, farce is a comedy that aims at entertaining the audience through situations that are highly exaggerated, extravagant, and thus improbable. Now, that is a truth, but it is also not a complete truth. And the word I dispute in that is improbable. And you'll understand what I mean in a moment. It goes on. Farce is also characterized by physical humor, the use of deliberate absurdity or nonsense, and broadly stylized performances. It's also often set in one particular location where all events occur. The word farce comes from a French word meaning stuffing. Everything is thrown in. Improvisation, very often dance, music, song, everything was thrown in. And in the a lot of the modern sense of it in the Shakespearean, if we count Shakespeare as the beginning of the modern, performed as comical interludes in other plays. Our earliest notion, again, according to the Divine Wikipedia, comes, and I do concur with this myself, around the middle of the 1500s. So, that's the technical definition of farce. The principle of farce is that of all comedy. A thing is only funny if someone is in pain. I'm going to repeat that. A thing is funny only if somebody is in pain, which is why I say there's nothing funny about farce. So why do we laugh? Now, again, another quote that I've used before, but I think it's important to keep reiterating these, because I have to, when I'm looking at a play that I might direct that might be a comedy, if I, as an actor or any other actor, or I encourage any other actor who has to be funny, has to display comedic structure in the work they present, it is terribly important to remember this fact. Something's only funny if someone's in pain. And I quoted him before, and I'm recalling again the incredible, simple wisdom imparted to me by my mentor as a director, the late great Hilton Edwards, who was the founder of the Dublin Gate Theatre. This little simple dictum: a farce is a tragedy happening to someone else, whereas a tragedy is a farce happening to you. Now, farce happens when we see someone else living our own nightmares, is another way of putting it. It sounds a very cruel thing to say, but it is also true. We all, at some point in our lives, have that kind of nightmare, that kind of really bad dream when you wake up and you think, oh man, thank God it's only a dream, where everything that could go wrong does go wrong, where you are in a state of personal hell, and there seems no way out, no solution. Every problem seems to pile one on top of another, and you wake up screaming or sweating or simply just saying, I need a cup of coffee. But in our nightmares, we are in pain. Simple fact. So if I say a farce happens when someone else is living our own nightmares, and it is a cruel thing to say, it is also a very healthy thing as well. Because a farce gives us a kind of reassurance that nothing is quite as bad as we fear it could be. That no matter how bad things get, no matter how absurd they can be, no matter how absurd the situation or our involvement in it, we can come through it. Farce, in that sense, is a restorative to our nightmare scenarios. Farce, as an art form, is essential to our sense of well-being. It's part of what theatre does. It gives you comfort. And when you look at a tragedy, when you look at an appalling tragedy, and one of the beauties of a tragedy is that you can see it coming. You know it's all going to end badly. You know King Lear is not going to have a happy ending. You know Romeo and Juliet are destined to die the moment they have a dance at that ball of the Capulets. You know that the Othello-Desdemona marriage will not end well. That's tragedy. And what makes it even more tragic for you is that you can see the absurdity of things happening and there's nothing you can do to stop them. Whereas in farce, you watch the absurdity, but with a great sense that it all will resolve itself. It is a more comforting form of theatre. It also has another purpose. The Greeks actually understood this one. Another quote: "The theatrical genre of Greek comedy can be described as a dramatic performance pitting two groups or societies against each other in an amusing conflict." Now, that's important. And Shakespeare does use this point in Comedy of Errors. Quick word about Comedy of Errors. It's his shortest play. It's one of his early ones. And I think my feeling when I read the play and when I've seen the play, I've never directed the play, but when I've seen the play and when I've read the play, I always get the feeling that he was trying out ideas, that he had a thing to say and he didn't want to say it in a heavy political way, so he said it in the classic Greek genre of a satire. And this particular point, that it teaches us that our differences are actually absurd, that you pit two societies against one another and show how stupid it is. Now, you can do that in tragedy, and you see it in Shakespearean tragedy. In the prologue to Romeo and Juliet, we are told in the first lines what the play is about. And it's not initially about two young kids who fall in love. The opening lines of that prologue: "Two households, both alike in dignity. In fair Verona, where we lay our scene, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean." In other words, this play is about two warring families, a feud, if you like. Could just as easily be about two warring countries, two warring cities, but in this case it's brought right down to the personal, two families. And out of that a tragedy ensues. But what Shakespeare, I think, wanted to show us to a degree in this play is that the warring aspect between, in this case, two cities is absurd. And he addresses this right at the very beginning. And another very, very good point about Shakespeare's comedies, all of them begin in such a way that they could turn into a tragedy. And it is the level of absurdity and the tack you take, the line of approach to the situation that turns it from tragedy to comedy. But the same rule applies. Somebody has to be in pain. And right at the beginning, Shakespeare gives us a speech. Now, another thing about this particular play, the speeches in it tend to be very long, just warning you. At the beginning of this play, the Duke of Ephesus has in front of him a merchant from the city of Syracuse who shouldn't be there. and he addresses him and sentences him. Merchant of Syracuse, plead no more. I am not partial to infringe our laws. The enmity and discord which of late sprung from the rancorous outrage of your duke to merchants, our well-dealing countrymen, who wanting guilders to redeem their lives, have sealed his rigorous statutes with their bloods. In other words, your duke has been killing our guys. Excludes all pity from our threatening looks. In other words, you're not even listening to us and our threats if he doesn't stop. For since the mortal and intestine jars twixt thy seditious countrymen and us, thy seditious countrymen and us, because we're nice and pure, it hath in solemn synods been decreed, both by the Syracusians and ourselves, to admit no traffic to our adverse towns. In other words, both cities have agreed we're not going to trade with one another. Nay, more, if any born in Ephesus be seen at any Syracusian marts or fairs, again, if any Syracusian born come to the bay of Ephesus, he dies. His goods confiscate to the duke's dispose, unless 1,000 marks be levied to quit the penalty and to ransom him. Thy substance, valued at the highest rate, cannot amount unto 100 marks. Therefore, by law, thou art condemned to die. The death penalty is being invoked simply for trading, unless, of course, you can buy it off by giving the duke in either town enough money. This is, if you like, NAFTA or Brexit gone crazy. This is, if you trade with us, you die. And if we trade with you, we'll pay the fine and we won't die. And that's the same argument on both sides. Now, by establishing an opening theme of potential tragedy, and Shakespeare, I think, is hoping, as any writer in this mode would hope, that the audience can see its absurdity. And if the audience can see the absurdity in this ridiculous law, then the play can now proceed so that, in a way that all that happens afterwards is equally absurd. Therefore, as though we might, even though we might all be law-abiding citizens, and I'm sure we all are, and I'm sure all of you are, we can get a glimpse of how absurd our own laws can be. And we can laugh at it. That's the point. By setting this up with a potential tragedy, don't forget, first thing that happens in this play is a death sentence, but for a law that in itself is just absurd. It's stupid. If you trade with us, we kill you. If we trade with you, you kill us. So we'll go on killing you and you'll go on killing us until eventually there are no merchants left or no trade. It is an absurd law and we can laugh at it. And that means that theatre is giving us an opportunity to laugh at things that we're supposed to take seriously. So let's go on to the nightmare. In this play, Shakespeare uses mistaken identity, which very often can mean hidden identity as well. And from the Greeks right through to modern times, the notion of mistaken identity or hidden identity is absolute fodder for comedy. Here is a classic theme. It stretches back to the various earliest of theatres. And if you look at it, the themes of most, if not all, modern comedy can be found in the earliest of all dramas. It's the same basic plot line. Whatever you may find in modern comedies, it will have its roots in the writings of such as Aristophanes, Plautus, Terence. Greeks and the Romans did it long before any of us did. And Shakespeare, who never had an original plot line in his life, stole copiously from the plot lines of those who had gone before. Now, where the plots may have been simpler in those earlier plays, they were still based on that same principle of the absurdity of human laws and human behavior and the way we react under any set of given circumstances, and usually wrongly or badly. Shakespeare starts with the premise of twins separated at birth, and not just one set of twins. He goes one better and has two pairs of twins, one pair as masters and the other as their respective servants. And in case this thought occurs to you, I'm going to add it in, that basic theme has been used countless times in other variations. The notion of the servant and the master, the notion of mistaken identity or hidden identity. The classic case of that would be Goldoni's Servant of Two Masters. It's a principle that makes comedy easy to construct, this notion that somebody is not what they seem to be, or is somebody else, or is pretending to be somebody else, and that nobody quite knows who that person is. And twins make it even better. Twins on stage are, here's a big one, automatically funny in our imaginations. We immediately, when you think about it, you can see the problem before it arises. If they're twins, how do you tell them apart? Once you set up this notion of twins, you have the groundwork already sown in the imagination of the viewer, of the audience. Because it's a problem that lies as a fear, a small fear, a slight fear, but a perceptible fear in all of us. And that is the perceptible fear that with twins, we might make a mistake. And I don't know how many of you have ever had that problem. It certainly happened to me. Of calling the wrong twin by the wrong name. And it's a sort of a fear. Which one am I talking to? Oh yeah, you're the one who, no, you look the same. It's there inside all of our minds that we might make a mistake in recognition. Now, that is, and it's a big word, but I'm using it deliberately, that's the nightmare scenario with twins. Which one is which? For instance, in the play, when the servant twin of one mistakes the other servant's master for his own, if you see what I mean, we recognize our own feared dilemma and we laugh at it. We will see twins or people confusing twins for somebody else, and we'll find it funny. That person who is confused is in pain, but we laugh at it because we recognize that fear within ourselves. We might behave in that way too, but thank goodness it's him and it's funny. In the play, when the wife of one twin mistakes the other twin as her own husband, we're overjoyed at the mistake and we laugh on. Now, it's not funny. There's nothing funny about farce. A woman mistaking her husband's twin for her husband could lead to all sorts of problems. Imagine in real life. Imagine the consequences of the divorce proceedings that would follow that. Explain that one to the judge. It is a delicate and difficult situation, but we are viewing it from the outside. We are seeing this problem in other people, something separate to us. It is a natural fear within ourselves, and our nervous reaction will make us laugh. Because it's okay. It's only make-believe. That is that which is wrong, or at least dangerous in life, the things we fear in reality, we are fine with, so long as we know it's only make-believe. So I come back to my original point. We can watch the sufferings of others and laugh, while we thank the heavens that it's not happening to us. A farce is a tragedy happening to someone else. Those things that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy are happening right in front of you in this theater, and you laugh. Now, my theory, what I think, and I may be wrong, but I believe it is possible that the art of theater is teaching you something very special. And if you're getting that lesson, you're experiencing the power of satire. The theater is teaching you that those things in your life that you fear are actually absurd, are actually crazy. And those things that you see on the stage as funny are not necessarily funny in real life. That it's asking you or demonstrating to you that even though you may find it funny in this situation, this is a situation in which you should feel empathy or at least sympathy. So there is a lesson in it. Now, I'm not being heavy about this and saying you should come out of the theater as better human beings and donate to poor people and all of that. What I'm saying is that there is a subtle message going on in the background, and it is tapping in, as always, with all things, with all theatrical reactions, with everything that you feel and sense and understand when you go and see a play. There is a subtle reaction going on. It is your feelings that you're seeing. It is your reactions that you are seeing. You are crying, as I said last time, you are crying not at what you see on the stage, but at yourselves. You are laughing at others when you see a farce, but what you're laughing at is to alleviate your own fears, to relax your own doubts and worries about any situation. And this play is a perfect example of it. Because in this play, it gets even worse, or better, depending on your perspective, and your own sense of joy in cruelty to others. And we all have it. Don't deny it. We all have a sense of joy in watching cruelty to others, provided it is in that safe environment of only being make-believe. To begin with, to add to the complexity, and this is where the genius starts to manifest itself within the play. It could have just been simple mistaken identities of two sets of twins walking around being mistaken for one another. But in this, neither set of twins know that they are twins. And that's important because they must not have any idea why strange things are happening to them. And here you add the next element of what makes the farce genius, what makes the farce wonderful to behold, what makes it actually matter and recognizable within ourselves. Confusion. Confusion is an essential to this kind of comedy. It is not enough that other characters make mistakes, that other characters are, as it were, reacting or overreacting or reacting badly to the main protagonists, which are the two sets of twins. What matters, or what makes it such a work of genius, is that neither set of twins knows that they are a twin. And out of that comes even more absurdity, even more danger, if you like, and even more possibility of pain, at which we will continue to laugh. When I say laugh, I'm not saying that we literally bust our guts in great belly laughs, but we find amusement and satisfaction and a kind of internal joy. That's what I mean when I use the word laugh. And it can also mean belly laugh as well. Otherwise, we on the stage would feel that we're wasting our time if we don't hear some reaction from the audience. And that can happen too. But this confusion in the principal characters is also another thing built beautifully into the text. For instance, when one servant whose own master is generally a decent enough person to work for, suddenly starts beating him for losing or spending money that he was never actually given, confusion reigns. Why is my master beating me for money he says he gave me, which he never gave me and I never spent? And of course, it's the wrong master with the wrong servant. We know, we're watching it. We see Dromio being beaten, or one of the Dromeos, and we laugh at it. We find it funny because we know the trick. We know that this is a game. We know that the construct behind it. And it's not nice, and it's very funny. We laugh and we laugh. When one of the masters, I'm not going to keep going on with their names, they're very long, Antipholus of this and Antipholus of that, and you only get confused, which is the purpose of the exercise. When one of the masters is confronted by a woman he has never seen before and who claims to be his wife, and we laugh. It's not a funny situation, especially for the wife, who is in a state of total confusion, total anxiety, complete worry. Why is my husband not acknowledging that I am his wife? It's enough to drive a person mad. More of that in a minute too, because it gets darker. When an apparent husband appears to be pursuing another woman, the wife's sister, much to the confusion and indeed, dare one say, the subdued delight of that other woman, the sister. It can only be madness. It's crazy. It's a world turned on its head, where everything that can go wrong does, where all perceptions of normality disappear, where reality seems to have gone crazy, just like your nightmares, where everything, the ground you thought you could stand on with security, disappears from under your feet. Now, if you imagine the situation, if you who are wives, imagine the situation that your husband comes home and suddenly says, I'm not married to you, I don't know who you are. It's not funny. Farce is not funny, yet we laugh at it from the outside. And this is how the construct always works. To take that which is absurd, but possible. For farce to truly work, it must be possible. There must be an explanation. It must be justifiable. And that's how the conclusion of a farce works, how a comedy ends with satisfaction, with some character or other bringing in a conclusion that explains everything and makes the world right again, as opposed to a tragedy where nobody can make it right. It is inevitably going to go wrong and has always been on that trajectory from the very beginning. And as I say, it seems like madness. Now, you can have ordinary comedy materialize from that madness. For instance, the two servants I mentioned, the two Dromeos. The Dromio of Syracuse has been mistaken for Dromio of Ephesus by a woman. And he explains it to his own boss, who the two bosses keep moving around, but he explains it to his own master. Marry, sir, beside myself, I am due to a woman, one that claims me, one that haunts me, one that will have me. Now, it's the same problem that the master is having. He's found a wife that he does not recognize and has never met before. But he asks the servant, what is she? And the servant replies, a very reverent body, aye. Such a one as a man may not speak of without he say, Sir Reverence, I have but lean luck in the match, and yet she is a wondrous fat marriage. I have lean luck in the match. I don't like this. If she is my wife, which she isn't, I don't like it. She is a wondrous fat marriage. How do you mean, a fat marriage? Marry, sir, she is the kitchen wench and all grease. I know not what use to put her to, but to make a lamp of her and run from her by her own light. I warrant her rags and the tallow in them will burn a Poland winter. If she live till doomsday, she'll burn a week longer than the whole world. Now, what we are getting here is, again, Shakespeare's genius. He set forward the proposition of a husband not recognizing a wife because she's not his wife. She's his twin brother's wife, but he doesn't know he has a twin brother. And here you have Shakespeare taking exactly that same motif and repeating it on a lower level of comedy. And by lower level, I'm not disparaging it. I'm simply saying it's on a simpler and coarser level. You might almost say that the intellectual side of things were the people in the posh seats, and that this level was for the groundlings who would recognize these characters immediately. Of what complexion is she of? Asks the master. Swart, says Dromio, like my shoe, but her face nothing half so clean kept. For why, she sweats. A man may go over her shoes in the grime of it. Well, the master says, that's a fault Walter will mend. No, sir, 'tis in grain. Noah's flood could not do it. Think about your nightmares again, that you suddenly find in this nightmare scenario, in this nightmare dream, that you are married to a gross, greasy, foul, disgusting monster of a person of either sex. Hell on earth to wake and find such a partner laying claim to you. And this is the game that we keep adding, or Shakespeare does, adding layer after layer after layer of absurdities that are actually credible. Because in a nightmare situation, when you are dreaming, it's real. Otherwise, we wouldn't wake up frightened. Otherwise, we wouldn't wake up relieved. It is the actuality of the situation that frightens us. It seems so real. It's happening. And it gets worse still. There is a very long, convoluted series of mistaken identities. The stranger, master, finds himself being courted by a courtesan, looking for jewelry that he promised. He is arrested. He's considered insane. And for all of these things of which he has no knowledge. Now, again, he does not know he's a twin. He does not know what's going on. But everybody around him seems to understand what's happening, and he doesn't. It reminds me very much of the famous actor's nightmare, and it's not just the actor, just about every trade and craft has the equivalent. But the classic actor's nightmare is that you are standing in the wings, waiting to make an entrance, the play is going on, and you're standing there saying, I have no idea what this play is, I don't know the lines, I wasn't at rehearsal, help. That's the exact situation. That's the exact nightmare that the characters in Comedy of Errors find themselves. The Comedy of Errors is a perfect title because it is a comedy of mistake, mistaken identity, mistaken understanding, mistaken perceptions. Everything in this play is a mistake. All the people who are telling the truth are wrong because they're talking about the wrong person. And the wrong person is in error in thinking that everybody else is wrong because they're right, but about a different person. This construct is a work of genius. This construct is a master craftsman at work, structuring, changing, altering, but always bringing you forward one step more absurd than the last. And you think, how can this ever be resolved? But it's not a tragedy. Because in a tragedy, you can see the steps happening and understand how bad things are getting. In a farce, the steps happen and surprise you with their absurdity all the time. It takes that one step further all the time. It takes us, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. Oh my God, I can't believe that turned up. Oh my God, how is he going to get out of this? It is the building of complexity that makes the farce, like the nightmare, believable, even in its absurdity. Because you think well, of course that happened. Oh, well, of course that happened. The surprise confirms the absurdity. So there we have this stranger twin arrested for things of which he has no knowledge. And to add utter insult to injury, they drag him before a charlatan magician, summoned by the non-wife to cleanse him of the only reason that could possibly exist why he's behaving the way he does. He is possessed by a devil. Because when all other logical explanation fails, the only logical explanation is, of course, the most illogical. And that makes us laugh. These are the nightmares. A whole group gather round him. The courtesan. Is not your husband mad? The wife. His incivility confirms no less. To the magician, good Dr. Pinch, you are a conjurer. Establish him in his true sense again, and I will please what you will demand. The sister, alas, how fiery and how sharp his looks. She quite likes him. The courtesan, mark how he trembles in his ecstasy. If you had all this going on around you, wouldn't you be shaking in fear? People talking this crazy stuff at you? You are demonstrating your own possession by the devil. And the conjurer, Pinch, give me your hand and let me feel your pulse. There is my hand and let it feel your ear. And he hits him. Oh, well, obviously he must be mad or possessed. How could you do that? To which Pinch, the magician, the conjurer, responds in the time-honored phrase, I charge thee, Satan, housed within this man, to yield possession to my holy prayers, and to thy state of darkness hie thee straight. I conjure thee by all the saints of heaven. And we laugh. When you see that in The Exorcist, you don't laugh. You go, oh my God, that's really serious. That's awful, with the child on the bed spouting green vomit all over the place. But when you see it in this situation, you realize how absurd it is. To which the alleged madman, the alleged possessed, replies, peace, doting wizard, peace, I am not mad. To which the wife says, oh, I wish you weren't. And that's, again, adding on to that complexity of plotline. Denial of madness must be a confession of being mad. If you deny that you are possessed by the devil, you must be possessed by the devil, because the devil is the prince of liars. Therefore, the devil will always deny that he's in there. And then comes a sort of glimpse of the explanation. And he turns to the wife. You, minion, you, are these your customers? Did this companion with the saffron face reveal and feasted at my house, whilst upon me the guilty doors were shut and I denied to enter in my house? And he wasn't allowed in, because somebody else was already in there who looked like him. Denied at home, thou villain, what sayest thou, sir? And the servant, Dromio, is saying, and don't forget, this is the right servant to the right master. Yeah, you were denied entrance. You weren't allowed in. You were shut out. The doors were locked upon you and you shut out. And was it her that locked me out? Yeah, it was. So here's a situation where you have a man, A, totally confused because he hasn't done the things that were said he did. B, his wife locked him out of her own house and is now declaring him mad. Anyway, I can go on and on. As I say, I don't want to dwell too much on the plot because it's so complex. It is the principle behind it. That whatever you say in these circumstances will be deemed wrong. However you defend yourself in these circumstances will be deemed insane, because everybody else knows what they see and you can't see it. It's a nightmare and it's not pleasant. And if you put it into a sense of reality rather than theatricality, you realize just how dangerous and how awful and how much in pain this character is. And the more pain this character endures, the funnier we find it, because we recognize it. Now, how do you resolve that? This is another part of the farce structure. The resolution takes place, in this case, by the parents turning up. And it's a classic construct of farce, that the answer was always there, but the answer didn't realize it was the answer because the answer didn't realize there was a problem. That the merchant at the very beginning who was condemned to death is in fact the father of the twins. And they were separated at birth because he lost one of them. And they both belong here, because the mother of the twins is a prioress, is a woman locked away in a convent here. She was the mother of the twins. And the resolution was always there, which is part of the wonderful, joyous frustration of farce, that the answer was right at fingertips, but nobody knew. And it gives a kind of satisfaction that is pulled together, that however bad things might have got, the answer was easily found if you only knew where to look for it. Classic case of anybody can win the lottery so long as if only you knew that the right numbers were, you'd have won $500 million. It's that. But being a farce, we want to remind ourselves of it. And Shakespeare wants to remind ourselves of what we went through. And in this, he gives one of the twins a speech. When placed before the Duke, when the answers are beginning to click into place, he says, "Look, this is what happened." And he takes us through the events in a single speech. "I am advised what I say, neither disturbed with the effect of wine, nor heady rash provoked with raging ire, albeit my wrongs might make one wiser, mad. I'm not drunk, I'm not mad, I'm not stupid. This happened. This woman locked me out this day from dinner. That goldsmith there, were he not packed with her, could witness it, for he was with me then, who parted with me to fetch a chain, promising to bring it to the Porpentine, where Balthazar and I did dine together. Our dinner done, and he not coming thither, I went to seek him. In the street I met, and in his company, that gentleman there did perjured goldsmith swear me down that I this day with him received the chain, which God he knows I saw not, for which he did arrest me with an officer. I did obey, and sent my peasant home for certain ducats. He with none returned. Then fairly I bespoke the officer to go in person with me to my house. By the way we met my wife, her sister, and a rabble more of vile confederates. Along with them they brought one Pinch, a hungry, lean-faced villain, a mere anatomy, a mountebank, a threadbare juggler, and a fortune-teller, a needy, hollow-eyed, sharp-looking wretch, a dead-looking man. This pernicious slave, forsooth, took on him as a conjurer, and glazing in mine eye, feeling my pulse with no face as 'twere out, facing me, cries out, I was possessed. Then altogether they fell upon me, bound me, bore me thence, and in a dark and dankish vault at home, there left me and my man both bound together, till gnawing with my teeth my bonds in sunder, I gained my freedom, and immediately ran hither to your grace, whom I beseech to give me ample satisfaction for these deep shames and great indignation." That's another little tiny stroke of farcical genius. That you've been through this journey with the two twins, or rather the four twins. You've been through this journey. You've seen all these events happen, but they've all piled one upon another to the point where it become a total, complete confusion, which is part of the exercise. And then, as a stroke of genius, right at the end, you have one character recap everything you've seen. And in that recap, he has taken you through all those cruelties. If you look at that speech, all the cruelties that have happened to the characters. Not funny things, cruelties. All the pain that they have gone through, of being rejected in their own home, of being accused of demonic possession and insanity, of being imprisoned, of having to escape, of being accused of corruption by a courtesan, of accused of theft by your master when he never gave you any money. All of these things are recapped, and everything in that list is an act of cruelty. Everything in that list explains pain. And comedy does not exist unless somebody is in pain. So there you have that structure. There you have it, beautifully presented. A lot of people will say of Comedy of Errors, yeah, it's okay, it's all right. I think it's a work of genius. I think it is a remarkable piece of construct. It's also very, very funny. It has been used as a model by so many other writers because of what it teaches us and how it works. It teaches us lessons. Farce teaches us lessons, and this is a classic farce. And in modern plays, just as much as in ancient ones, farce works. We wouldn't keep doing it. We would not keep using farce as a construct if it didn't work on us, on our imaginations, on our feelings. And the plots never really change. If you look at the dilemmas in plays like plays of Noel Coward or Neil Simon, they're still the same plots. If you take Noel Coward's Private Lives, it is a farcical situation that a man takes his new young bride on honeymoon and in a beautiful hotel suite, and in the hotel suite right next to him is his ex-wife with her new husband. That is the kind of nightmare scenario you would not wish on your worst enemy. If you look at a play by George Feydeau, when a man decides to take a young woman to a hotel for illicit relations, and in the same hotel is his, it's the same, it's exactly that same argument. That one dilemma piles on another, building up a confusion of activity and behavior that we see from the outside and say, thank God that isn't me. How terrible. And we laugh. They are written to make us laugh at what we fear. One of the beauties of theatre, it makes us laugh at what we fear. And farce is a very often undervalued and underrated form. When somebody says, that's not a great comedy, it's a bit of a farce, hit them because they're wrong. If it is a farce, and if it is a well-composed farce, it is a brilliant object lesson in how we react to life. Farce shows us our fears. It shows us our worries. It shows us our doubts. It shows us the misfortunes of others in a safe way, because it gives us the confidence not to be afraid. And with any luck, it teaches us to sympathize with others who are suffering things that we would not wish upon ourselves. A comedy of errors is every comedy that's ever been written. A comedy of errors is Shakespeare's, I think, landmark in the world of comedy construct, of just how bad things can get before they go right, at which we can, in comfort, sit back and say, there but for the grace of God, thank God, I do not go. Because it will then teach you sympathy. And I suppose that's an important lesson to learn as well. So there you are. Comedy of Errors. Not just a play, a whole way of life. Happy nightmares for the future. Next week, as we all know, or most of us hopefully know, I'm going to have another little sip of coffee now. Next week, we are currently in rehearsal for our first play of the season, which is Shakespeare's As You Like It. And over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking about that play and its construction and its aspects, and the fact that I did a series of lectures earlier this year elsewhere on the aspects of love not the musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber, but the play by William Shakespeare, As You Like It. So for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking about As You Like It. And the week after that, I'm going to be talking about, 2 weeks. 2 weeks of As You Like It. And then I think the week after that, I'm not decided on yet, but I'll get back to you. Anyway, you'll find it all in your emails because we love letting you know what we're doing. Do remember, tickets for As You Like It are now on sale. You can learn all about it in the next 2 weeks, but subscriptions and single tickets are now on sale. You do much better if you buy a subscription for the season because you get priority for the Expand the Canon series and you get to pick your seat. So I would recommend the best value in town is a subscription to Pict's coming season. In the meantime, have a wonderful week. See you here next Friday, and thanks for joining me. Bye.